So go ahead and you can start recording and we'll take a look at today's project. Let's see if it's updated. Yeah, okay. It's all good. All right, so today you'll be doing the React Redux app project. It's very descriptive, right? Okay, let's see what this project is. In your project, you will demonstrate proficiency of these subjects and principles by building an app from scratch that consumes an API of your choosing and displays data fetched from that API. So today's going to be a really fun day because you get to go find an API that is interesting to you. You get to learn about that API, learn how to make a GET request to that API, and then build a project completely around that API and that data. Yeah, Dave's excited. This will be really, really cool. So down here, we've got a link that takes us to this list of public APIs here. And here are all of the subjects for open APIs. However, let's see, let me go back and open this in a new tab. You'll probably want to look for ones that say that there's no auth required and that they do support HTTPS. So those are kind of the two things that I would look for if I were doing this project. The other choice is just to Google open APIs, any API. There's so many out there that you can consume data from. However, pro tip, don't take too long choosing an API. Pick one and get going. Okay, you're going to want as much time as you can to study the API, plan your project, and start coding. So for today, we're going to review real quickly Redux-Thunk and take a look at the syntax, just kind of remind ourselves what it is. And then as a class, we're going to choose an API and we're going to build an app off of our chosen API. However, once we choose an API, no one else can choose that API for your afternoon project. So just a heads up there. Cool, so let's take a look first at Async Redux and Redux-Thunk. And then I'll give you a few minutes to look through this link here and come up with a couple of choices that you want to see me build that we can build together in class today. And then we'll see if we can come up with a good one to use for today. All right, so Async Redux. I feel like we're pretty well rehearsed on finite state machines, but let me just drop this real quick. So let's see. Hopefully, how would you rate your understanding of finite state machines in a React Redux app? Okay, please, please, please respond truthfully here. I'm going to use this data to decide what to cover in this morning before we jump into our building. So, let's make this anonymous. There's that better? Sorry. I was talking. I don't know what else everybody else was doing. What I was saying is if you never got a chance to learn this, we're gonna kind of fly through these objectives so we can get to building real quick, because I'm assuming that everybody that's in this lesson has been through this and just needs a quick refresher. If you haven't been through this material, please go to CJ's guided project in Web20.75 temp right here. So he is building out the NASA project. He is assuming that you haven't been through this material, and we'll be covering each of these kind of like a normal lecture. So if you haven't seen these, jump over to his lecture. Okay, cool. So finite state machines. A finite state machine is a machine that can have a finite number of states. In other words, not an infinite number of states. So a defined number of states that it can be in, but it is only in one state at any given time. When we build Redux apps, we accomplish this by doing something like, we may not see it here. Aha, yeah. By doing something like this: fetch Pokemon start, fetch Pokemon success, fetch Pokemon fail, right? So with a finite state machine, when we're talking about this in a React Redux application, what we're trying to say is there are a limited number of states that our app can be in at any given time. And at any given time, it can only be in one of those states at a time. So this list is, let me find the table that we looked at last time. You guys will remember this. Okay, so let's think about a common app with a login form. So we've got a number of states, a finite number of states that our app can be in. And with our action creators, especially our asynchronous action creators, we want to transition from state to state as our user is typing in the login form, submitting requests, et cetera, et cetera. So we start with our opening state. That's the login form. Our user fills out the login, the username, password inputs. They submit the form, and then we transition to a loading state. So then we're in a loading state, which means we have started our fetch request, our get request, but we haven't gotten any data back, right? So we're loading. So maybe that means that we've got a whole new view up that's just a loading data view. It's got a spinner. Maybe we keep the login form up and we just put a spinner inside the button, or display somewhere on the page that we are checking their credentials. Whatever it is, we're now in a loading state. Then when the API call comes back, there are two possible outcomes for that fetch request. Either we were successful. Oh, this I guess would be a post request, right? So we were either successful logging in or we failed our request, right? Let's look at the failure path. So we log in, we see the spinner, the data comes back, your credentials did not match. So then we transition to our error page. And again, this could be, you could write this to be an entire page that displays an error. Maybe you have a button that says try again and it takes you back to the login form. Maybe you're still on the login form and you just have some red text under the form that says your username and password didn't match, try again. There's a lot of different ways to handle being in an error state or handle being in a loading state. They click try again, they go back to loading, we see that spinner, it comes back successful, so then they go to the profile. And then from there, it's just a world of possibilities, right? There could be more forms, there could be other pages that they go to. Maybe they click on a tab and it takes them to a new page, but you have to fetch data for that new page. So as they click between tabs, they're in a loading state each time. There's a lot of different pathways to go from here. Any questions on the theory behind finite state machines as they work in Redux? Oh, haha, we're still on temp. Let's go back here. Yes. Dave, you probably meant to say, is this different? Is this much different than from what we've been doing? Okay. No, again, if you've gone through this lesson before, it's simply, let me go back down to this, handling all of our possible states here, right? So we remember writing 3 action creators for every single, or 3 action types for every single action creator, right? If it deals with an API, and then you write a case for every single action creator. So nope, this isn't going to be much different than what we've seen before, than what we've been doing. Yeah, this pattern is called finite state machine. And you'll see it referenced actually quite often in the industry. There's a lot of people that write their apps this way. It makes it really easy to think about solving for all the possible states that you could be transitioning to. Or when you transition to, when you build out your state here, handling all the possible states you're coming from, right? So if we started a fetch and then that comes back successfully, then obviously we've got our data, but we could be coming from a loading state, right? So we need to change our fetching back to false. We could be coming from an error state, so we have to clear out our errors. So yeah, this is a common term in the industry. Yeah, right. Huh. You'll find that quite often over the next couple years. Okay, cool. Let's look at thunks and then we'll take a break. So now that we understand finite state machines, we need to look at how to make asynchronous calls from our action creators, right? So the normal traditional Redux flow looks like this. We've got our component. Something happens in our component. There's some event that happens, a button click, data fetch call comes back. You know, something happens in our UI that we want to trigger an action dispatch. So our action creator, we call our action creator, which dispatches an action to the reducer, which updates our state. That's the normal flow. We can add middleware to our Redux flow, and middleware will intercept all of our actions that are being dispatched before they get to the reducer. So this is something like Redux logger, right? So we add Redux logger. Every single action that gets dispatched goes through Redux logger, gets logged out in our console, and then dispatched to the reducer. We use this to intercept any actions that are dispatched that are not objects, but that are functions. And this is how we can turn our action creators into asynchronous functions. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So Redux-Thunk. Redux-Thunk is a way to, inside our action creator, return a function out of our action creator. Like, let's look at it this way first. This is the same here, but just with arrow functions to clean it up. So if we look at this, we've got an action creator that returns a function. Now think about that without Redux-Thunk. If we tried to return a function out of an action creator, that function would be dispatched to our reducer, and we would get an error from the reducer saying that our action is not an object, right? So we need to intercept that function that's being returned from our action creator and not let it get to our reducer. So Redux-Thunk stops any actions that are functions and does not forward them onto the reducer. Instead, what Redux-Thunk does is it takes this, oh, let's see, I skipped it, is it takes this function that it's intercepted and it calls that function with the dispatch function. And then inside this return function, we can dispatch our own actions, which are at this time objects that will make it to the reducer. So we're going to use Redux-Thunk like this to, we've got our action creator, we've got whatever data we're sending to our action creator. We're going to return a function, which gives us access to dispatch, and then we'll make Axios calls inside that return function. So that's where we're going to be at today. If you're still a little hazy on it because it's been so long, that's okay. I think you'll understand it as we walk through it. Let's see if there's any questions, and then we'll jump into a break. Yeah. Please ask questions if you have any questions on this. Again, we're all about data collection and making sure that you're giving us the right data to know that you're understanding these lessons. Chuck Tatership. This one's name is Thunk. I like it. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good analogy. Because if you're a function, you don't make it into the club. Only objects get into the nightclub. Okay, didn't quite understand what you meant by without Thunk, it would say an action. Yeah, so let's walk through that again real quick. Okay, so with a normal action creator, what we've seen up to this point is that action creators, let's see, okay, action creator looks something like this, right? So here's a normal action creator where it's a function, takes in some data, returns an action. It creates an action. When an action is returned, when we call any action creator, whether it's asynchronous or just a normal one like this, whatever is returned out of here gets dispatched, right? Under the hood, that happens. Our action creators get wrapped in the dispatch function. So whatever is returned out of our action creator functions gets dispatched to the reducers. A reducer is expecting an object for the action. And if it receives anything but an object, it throws an error and says actions must be objects. Okay? So thinking of that, what would happen if we didn't return an object out of here? What would happen if we instead returned a function? Well, our reducer would see that the action is not an object, that it's a function, and it would throw an error. It wouldn't let us do that. That's this flow right here. That's without any middleware. That's just our normal flow. An action creator gets called, returns an action. That action's dispatched to the reducer. The reducer checks to see if it's an object, checks to see if it has a property called type. And if it passes both of those checks, then it goes through the reducer logic. If either of those checks fails, it throws an error. So with async Redux, what we want to do is we actually, out of our action creators, we want to return a function instead of an object. The reason we want to do this is this lets us make asynchronous calls without blocking our UI. This lets us put on loading notifications, transition to those states cleanly without making our users sit there looking at no changes until the API call comes back. Okay, so we want to return a function out of our action creator, but we know that that's going to cause an error. So to fix that, we introduce middleware that intercepts our actions before they get to our reducer. And this particular middleware, Redux-Thunk, is going to check to see if the action is a function or an object. If it's an object, then the action gets dispatched to our reducer. If the action is a function, then we stop that action. We don't let it go to the reducer. Instead, we call that function and pass in the dispatch action, or dispatch function. And then we can dispatch new actions based on what we're wanting to do. Does that help, Marcus? Let me know. So all Thunk does is runs the function you give it and sends out an object to the reducer. No, it doesn't send out all it does is run the function you give it. That's it. If Thunk sees that it's an object, it just forwards it on untouched. It says, oh, this is an object, so it must want to get, we probably want it to get to the reducer, and forwards it on untouched. If we have time, I'll actually show you, it's like 4 lines of code, Redux-Thunk. I'll show you what it is. We can build it pretty easily, but only if we have time. Okay, let's see, so where you've typed dispatch log action, that'd actually look like another action object. Yes, yeah, because look at this, logged in action. Here's the variable, logged in action. It's an object. So we really could, normally we just put this inside here. So yeah, logged in action is an object. Good question. Okay, let's take a break, and then we'll choose an API to play with today. Woohoo! Okay, come on back to your computers. All right, I'm gonna take a few requests. So let me drop this link. I'll just take the first 6 requests that I see. We already got one for Chuck Norris. So take a look at the database list, and if you see one that you want to build in class, then we will do that. Dog API. I do like a good dog API. Ooh, Pokemon is fun. So we've got Chuck Norris, Hearthstone, dog, Pokemon, video-based API. What's video-based API? Is it like a video? Oh, cool. Place Goat, Google Places. Okay, that's all the requests we're taking. All right, remember, whichever one we choose, you do not get to build in your afternoon project. So if you want to do Hearthstone in your afternoon project, then don't vote for Hearthstone. Okay, so all right, multiple choice. Let's add some choices. So we've got Chuck Norris and Hearthstone, dog, Pokemon, Ticketmaster. This also depends on if they're easy to consume, because we only have an hour left. So let me pull up the list on my phone. Let's see. PlaceGoat. I don't even know what PlaceGoat is. A video. We could do one of the video APIs. PlaceGoat. And the last one is, oh, placeholder goat images. Nice. Google Places. Google Places might be hard because it probably has some auth required. Maybe not though. Okay. I'll give you 2 minutes to choose. And I will allow multiple choices. Show responses. Oh, not allow adding choices. Allow multiple vote. There we go. It's a race. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Hearthstone is looking popular, but video coming up with a strong second place. Ooh, Chuck Norris jumping ahead. Nope, Hearthstone takes the lead again. Hearthstone with a strong showing out of the gate. Chuck Norris nipping at its heels. No Pokemon fans here. Maybe people want to use Pokemon. Probably tons of Pokemon fans here. That's what that means. Octar. I know, we need a Smurfs option. Totally. Okay, someone explain Hearthstone. We've got a few folks here that are asking for that. I'm going to look for Okay. All right. How do I end voting? Looks like, ooh, Hearthstone and Chuck Norris. It is so close. Okay, let's go into Hearthstone. Oh no, that was just rude. Okay, voting is done. We're going to go with Chuck Norris. All right, no auth, HTTPS. I mean, it's good to use HTTPS so you know it's secure, but we'll be okay without it. I would suggest finding one that has HTTPS, yes. Okay, here we go. So what we're gonna do is we have to look at the documentation here to see how to use this API. So we've got jokes available at this endpoint here. Use HTTP GET to retrieve what you want. Read on below for more details. Results can be returned as raw JSON data or using a JavaScript callback function for script communication. So using callback functions, let's see. JSON in the default case. Okay, we don't have to worry about this. You might be tempted to say, oh, this is where I want to go because I don't want raw JSON. I want JavaScript stuff. This is actually how most APIs communicate. And Axios will take this raw JSON and convert it to JavaScript objects for us. So don't worry about coming down here thinking this is the option you want to choose. Okay, in the default case, the result will always look like this. We've got a type. Looks like it tells us if we were successful or not, and then a value. Chuck Norris joke. Okay, let's see. The API permits changing the name of the main character when fetching a joke. To do this, use a first name parameter and a last name. So John Doe, time waits for no man unless that man is John Doe. So we could make Dustin Myers jokes. Okay, fetching a random joke, fetching multiple random jokes. That looks like it will be useful. Limiting categories. So we can limit explicit categories. Let's see. The jokes in the database are given categories such as nerdy or explicit. When fetching multiple jokes, it's possible to limit the scope of some of these categories or exclude some of them. We'll exclude explicit while we're in class here today. Fetching a specific joke, fetching the number of jokes, fetching the list of joke categories. Cool. Okay, a lot of good stuff we can work with. So what we're going to do is open up a new sandbox. And we're going to set up Redux quickly. That's a good joke right there. Okay, so we need Redux. We need React Redux. Redux-Thunk. And just refresh the page because Code Sandbox has been weird when you fork new sandboxes for some reason. Romantic pair. That is our endpoint for today. All right. Why don't you all take a 5-minute break while I boilerplate some code? Sound good? You don't have to sit here and watch me create the base reducer and provider and stuff. Feel free to watch if you want the refresher again. Otherwise, take a break, and I'll see you back in 5 minutes. Okay, come on back. We components jokes did not export. It did export jokes, but it didn't save correctly. There we go. Yay! Alrighty. So here we go. We've got our basic reducer here, where we've got our state is fetching, error, no jokes. And then we've got our switch statement going on, state action. We have set up our store by passing in our reducer and calling apply middleware and passing in Thunk. So remember, if we want to use middleware in our app, this is how we set that up. Okay, so we've got Thunk passed in, which means in our action creators, if we dispatch an action that's a function, it will intercept that function and not let it get to the reducer. So that's what this line here is going to do. Okay, so all my files are saved. Go ahead and fork off of this link. So jump onto romantic pair RQDPW. Fork off of that if you want to follow along today. And can you do the boilerplate from your hammock? I'm worried that my hammock is not set up correctly and it's going to break my floor. So it probably won't, but I haven't sat in it since yesterday, that one time, because I don't want to break my house. Okay, cool. So we've got our jokes component here. We're going to connect this component. And we're going to check out our state to make sure that our state is coming in correctly. So a really good way to do that is like this. If we say, well, we'll do map state to props. We'll set up a map state to props. And notice that we have access to our entire state object here, right? So we're going to need to return an object out of this. But before we do that, we're just going to check out our state right here. And then pass this into there, empty object there. Now we should get a console log. Perfect, with our state. So if you're following along, I'll give you a second to catch up in your jokes.js file with map state to props and connecting your component. All right. So where do you think we should go next? What should we do here? You are the architects today. You get to make all these decisions. It's so cool. Create a thunk in our actions file and make the API call. Yeah, I like it. Let's do it. So let's go to, let's create an index.js inside our actions. React Redux-based hooks. So let's do this. Let's pull this out into its own tab, close it down here. Okay, let's think about this. We talked briefly about the finite state machine pattern, right? So what action types do we want to include for this GET request? Okay, we're going to have like we are currently fetching data. Is fetching start, good. And then a success and a failure. Nice, success, failure, error, perfect. So export const. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Let's do this. Yes. So we're fetching jokes. So what I like to do is inform my reducer that we're fetching jokes, and whether it's the start, success, or failure. So I'm going to say fetch jokes for all of these. And then I'm going to have a success and failure. Okay, I'm going to copy all those. That one. Perfect. Okay, so I've got all of my different action types. What these are going to do, the reason we want 3 of these for every single API call we would make is this is how we inform our reducer which state we're trying to transition to. So it does get pretty tedious making all of these, but if you're following the finite state machine pattern, it really, really helps. Thank you. All right, let's make an action creator. So who would like to volunteer some syntax for an asynchronous action creator? We haven't seen this for a while. We saw it briefly today, so it's okay if you don't remember this part. That's okay. Async await is so nice. You will learn async await in the backend unit with Luis. It's like stepping stones. You learn promises now in the first unit. We learn Axios. Actually, you do learn Axios in the first unit as well. We build on that in React, and then you move to async await in unit 4. It's pretty awesome. Hey, there we go. Okay, so we're going to export const fetch. I'm going to say fetch jokes. You know what would be kind of fun to do? Let's do it this way. Let's build an app that has a button that you click to fetch a new joke. So we're going to fetch a new joke every time. So yeah, let's do fetch joke. So that means all of these need to be, oh, that didn't work. There we go. This should, there we go. Okay. Then we've got, we don't really need data, right? I'll talk about where we could use some data here, kind of towards the end of the lesson, and how you can, for probably part of your stretch goals today for your project, you can do something similar to what I'll explain here later. Okay, so we've got a function that returns a function. William, don't forget the second arrow here, because this is another function that's being returned. All right. In a second, we're going to fetch jokes. But before we kick that off, we want to use this dispatch action that we've been given to dispatch a function that tells our reducer that we're about to start our fetch. Go ahead and when our reducer sees this, it will set up a state object that has is fetching true and our UI, and that will make our UI transition to a loading state, right? So let's handle this part first. So we're going to dispatch fetch joke start. Let's go to our reducer. Let's import, if I still have it copied. Yeah, nice. Love it when you still have the right thing copied. Okay. Now this is our initial state, right? So let's think about what we want to set up. Oh, let's wrap this in a case here. Case fetch jokes start. Let's think about what state we want to transition to when we see fetch joke start. So what are we going to write inside here? What is our state going to look like when our reducer sees the fetch joke start action? Okay, awesome. Is fetching true? Thank you. State, always spread in state. Is fetching is going to be set to true. Anything else that we would want here? There's one other possible state we could be coming from, not necessarily this. There's another state that we could potentially be coming from that we want to solve for. Yeah, reset error. Oh, yes, thank you. We would have had some issues there. Okay, we want to reset. Oh, oh man, you guys are amazing. Thank you. We want to reset our error. So real quick, Hij, yeah. Error, there we go. Even if we have a joke, oh, let's change this to joke. And this is probably going to be an object, so we're going to initialize it as null. Okay, so let's say we've got a joke on the screen, and so we're not coming from joke is null. We get to make a decision here. We could be coming from a state where we have a joke, no error, and is fetching false. So we keep no error, we change is fetching to true. If we have a joke, do we want to go back to null while we're fetching? Or do we want to keep that joke on the screen while we fetch the next joke? Oh, really good question. Doesn't spreading in state already reset the error? It doesn't, because this only gets passed into the reducer once at the very beginning of your app. So the first time that the reducer gets called, that's when we get this object here. However, the reason we clear out error is if we're coming from an error state, then this will have some error message in here. Our state object, not this initial state object, but our actual state object, our current state, could potentially have an error message. So we want to clear that out. Okay, we could add another joke to the other, so we could start compiling a list. What I want to do for this, though, is have a button that says fetch joke, fetch new joke. And if our UI is displaying a joke, when we fetch a new joke, it will replace that old joke with the new joke. So I do like your guys' line of thinking, but I'm going to do it differently because this is my project. That would be kind of fun, though. So thinking about our requirements, we want to replace our old joke with a new joke. Yeah, we could do this. We could clear the old joke while we're fetching and just display a loading state, or we could display a loader and keep our old joke. Okay, we'll go with clear old joke and display a loader. Perfect. Okay, so we've got our fetch joke start case built out. What are we doing here? Aha. So let's go ahead and build out our component to handle our loader and our loading state. All right, we're gonna do this. And we're gonna say if we've got props dot joke, then we're going to display our joke. So we'll do, we don't know what the data looks like quite yet, so we'll just say joke dot joke. I don't know. Let's just say joke for now until we see what the data is going to look like. Oh, it's coming from errors up here. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So we're pulling in our joke. What else do we need to pull in from state? We're doing this because I'm assuming that joke is an object. So you could set it as an empty object here. However, that gets a little tricky because you can no longer check to see if this is truthy or falsy. So personally, I like to keep this null, and then I can check to see if it's truthy or falsy. Setting this null makes us have to do this, right? However, so if it was just an empty object, we would just have to do this, and then it'd be okay. But there's some other reasons that you might want to check to see if it's truthy or falsy. Like if it's there, then display this. We could do something like this. If we have a joke, display that. Otherwise, display fetch a joke for some giggles. So this helps us be able to do something like this, where if we had joke set to an empty object, then we wouldn't be able to do this because joke would be truthy, and then we display joke dot joke or whatever it comes out to be. And that would be empty. We would display nothing. We would never ever get to this because this is always going to be truthy when we have an empty object. Great question. Can we just ping it? Okay, yes, it is time. Well, no, not yet. Not quite time. What I want to do is just make sure we get our loading state, and then we'll go look at the API. Okay, so what data? Oh, here we go. Error and is fetching. Yeah, let's pull in all of our state. Error state dot error and is fetching state dot is. Now in this case, since we're doing thing state dot thing state dot thing state dot thing, we really could just spread in state here, and it would give us all of those. I'm not going to do that because in map state to props, you'll never see this because you'll have more in your state than you want to bring into any one component. So on this tiny little simple app, yes, we could do this and it'd be okay. But for today, but we're not going to because I don't want you to get into a bad habit of doing that. All righty. Cool. So let's build a button. Let's do it right here. That says, "Get me some facts." And when we click on this, we're going to do what? What's going to happen when we click on this button? Yeah, we're going to run our get jokes function, right? We want to invoke our fetch joke. But I like this. Let's do get laughs. We're gonna have a little fun with this. So we'll say const get laughs. It's an event dot prevent default fault. Now what? Gotta import our thunk, yes. Gotta import our action creator. So just a heads up, this is not a thunk. This is an action creator. The thunk is the function returned out of an action creator. Or technically a thunk is a function returned out of a function. So any inner function that you return out of a function is technically called a thunk, which is why the library is called Redux-Thunk. So instead of importing our thunk, we're going to import our action creator because technically this is the thunk here. So yeah, let's import this. Fetch go from /store /actions. As we discussed yesterday, this goes down here. And we'll say fetch joke right there. Let's give ourselves a little breathing room. Okay. Oh, we need to solve for, in our UI, for is fetching. So if is fetching is true, then let's go get our React loader spinner. I'm going to add dependency React loader spinner. Then import loader from React loader spinner. And props.isFetching. Okay, so now when we click on this button, it's going to invoke this action creator, which is going to dispatch fetch joke start, which is going to return this state, and we'll have isFetching is true, and then isFetching will come in here as true. We'll see isFetching is true, and we should display our loader. All right, let's try it. Oh, fail. Maybe we need to refresh. Uh-oh, what's going on? Let's see. Let's do this. Fetch joke. Aha! Who sees our problem? Yes. Props.fetch joke. Remember, if you just call this without props, it will call this function, but this never gets dispatched, and this function never gets called with the dispatch function, so this will never get called. So this never made it to our Thunk middleware. So let's go back to jokes. We'll call props.fetch joke. Now we should see our loader. Woohoo! Nice. I'm also going to do this. If we're in a loading state, I don't want to see this message, right? So we want to write our app in such a way that this is gone. So we'll say we can do a nested ternary statement. Props.isFetching. If this is false, we do that. Ha, cool. Oh yeah, we could remove the button while fetching. You know what? What will make this easier? Watch this. If we just want to hide everything on here while we're fetching, oh no, but we want to keep, oh no, we do want to remove the joke, yeah. So let's just move this, all of this, into its own return up here. Okay, so if we're fetching, then we're going to return, oh, our loader. And then we can move this into our app. Okay, do you follow what I did there? We had this inside our UI, but then we decided that we wanted to hide pretty much everything if we're fetching. So then we wrote, if we're fetching, hide this, and then we were about to write, if we're fetching, hide this. So then we'd have props.isFetching 3 different times inside this one return. So we just abstracted that and pulled it into its own if statement here with its own return. So none of this will display if we're fetching data. Let's see. Are we still getting an error? Yes. Where's my error? Right there. No. Here. Oh. Code sandbox, you're being weird again. Okay, there we go. Cool, great job. Now we're going to take our last break. Can you believe how fast this has gone? When you're having fun, we're gonna take our last break and then we will make our data call. All righty, here we go. Okay, let's go back to our documentation. And we want to hold on one second. Okay, we want to fetch just a random joke. So we're going to do this, and we'll see the result here is going to have type success and then a value. So we're going to have a value as an object coming to our action creator. Just make sure these guys are okay. All right, cool. So let's go back to here. Does this let me copy it? Oh, that's not what I wanted. That's okay. This is an example of bad UI. Let me show you why. When I try to hover on this to copy and to highlight it and copy and paste, look where my mouse is. So when I go there, my mouse is over the text, and then it shifts down, and now my mouse is no longer there. Okay, so we're going to do that, but to keep things safe for work, we're going to say exclude, and then an array with explicit. So question mark, exclude, explicit. Cool, so this is what we can expect to get back. When Chuck Norris falls in water, Chuck Norris doesn't get wet. Water gets Chuck Norris. Okay, awesome. Brave man to call Chuck Norris on duck. Oh, that's funny. So let's go back to here. We're going to go into our action creator, and we're going to go ahead and fetch our joke. So for that, we need Axios. We're going to import Axios from Axios. And we'll go ahead and start our fetch. Axios.get a random joke. Then res. Now, we saw what it's going to return here, but this isn't what Axios returns, right? So we have to console log our res first. We always console log our res, even though I know exactly what it's going to be because res.data is going to be this. But still, console log res, and we'll just start by console logging error. Okay. Cool. So this should kick off an Axios call, which will console log. Oh, got an error. Mixed content. Let's see. Ah, yeah, this is why we want to choose HTTPS. Anybody know a workaround for this? Oh, okay. Let's try that. Ah, okay, that worked. Very cool. All right, so we made our data fetch. Yay. So now we go to res.data.value.joke as our joke. So res.data.value.joke. We want to do what with that? res.data.value.joke. What are we going to do with this? Yeah, send to reducer as a payload. Dispatch our success action and send this as the payload. Exactly right. So let's drop this all down. And we'll say dispatch action with the type joke success with the payload of res.data.value.joke. All right, let's go handle our success case here. We're going to spread in our state. Then what else do we want inside here? Okay, we're going to get our joke is going to be our action payload. Good. Action.payload. What else? Is fetching is false. Awesome. And error. Yes. Yes. Good job. That handles all the possible states we could be coming from, right? And it sets up the correct state for when we successfully fetch a joke. I think this is actually going to work because this is a string. So when we get to .value.joke, this is a string. We could say .value and just pass in that object. But then in our UI, we'd have joke.joke. I hate doing that. Sometimes it's unavoidable. When I can, I try not to do that. So let's just pass the joke string in as joke, which means we need to change this to an empty string. And we want to change that. Empty string. Okay, don't think we need error because success can only come from is fetching start. Not necessarily. You'd be surprised at what, I mean, yes, for this case, I think that's the only way we would get to fetch joke success. But think about this. What if your user rage clicks on that button and sends out 10 requests before any of them come back, and then one of them comes back as an error, and then the second to last one comes back as an error, and the last one comes back successfully. So technically, we could potentially hit fetch joke success from an error state. So you'd be surprised. There are ways that these things happen. Again, that goes back to our subtly broken components. It's easy to say this is the only state we could ever be coming from, but that's not technically true. Can you clarify why we must reset error in our success state if it is already reset? Okay, yep. So same question there. What about the truthiness in the component? Do we need to make some changes now that, empty string is falsy. So if we do a check on joke, then, and it's empty, then it's falsy. Yeah, right? It's amazing. Also, the value 0 the number 0 is falsy, so you can check, you never have to check like array.length equals 0, then do this. You just check for array.length. If it's 0, then, well, that actually does cause a problem, which I can explain right after class today. Okay. Why do I feel personally attacked by that characterization of user behavior? Is there a reason why you're adding HTTP, HTTPS to URLs? That's a good question. Oh, I see what you were saying before up here. I didn't know you could do that. Hey, oh, hey, we got our joke. Nice. Yeah, that works. So yeah, I guess you don't have to add HTTPS. I learned something today. Thank you, Dustin. Woo! Round of applause for Dustin. Yay. All right. Yeah, Dustin's Unite. Cool. So check that out. In our reducer, we added our joke. We stopped our fetch. So we got to, we're no longer fetching. So we got to this return. We brought back our button and we have a joke. So now we display our joke. Let's do this in like a, I don't know, H4. Let's try an H4. At this point, we would start styling. And I want you to have minimal styles applied, at least some styling applied to your applications. I don't want you to just have the default styling like this. So part of your MVP today will be to have some kind of styling. Yes, that'd be awesome. And you should also, it's not mentioned in there, but you should also handle error states. And the way you can test error states is by like misspelling this. And then let's just clear this and click it again. And then we have an error. So if you come back with an error, then handle your error state. Okay, the last thing that I want to mention, go ahead, if you've got any questions over, yes. Oh, that's the best one I've seen yet. Oh, man. Okay, if you have any questions, bring up questions now. I'm going to talk about one more thing, and that is this. So this would be considered minus error handling and styling. Once we add error handling and styling here, that would be MVP for your project today. Everything we did plus those two things. Now, when you get to that point, let's go look at the project real quick. When you get to that point, I want you to take the app as far as you can go. Okay, if you finish in an hour, or if you finish in 3 hours, and you've still got time left over, start building more features. Keep going until at least until the day's up, until until stand up tonight. If you often code at night, keep going on this. Like, build this out as far as you can go. Use styling, refactor to use Redux hooks, add in another API, add more features. And then this one is really fun. So add an input to fetch data dynamically. What I mean by that is, let's say, let's see. So this one has a good one where you can change the name, right? Change the name of the main character. So we could do something like this. We could say, first, is it camel cased? Yeah, first name equals Andy. Last name equals Dylan. So we could do that, right? You could hard code this in, and then, oh, let's go put that back in. Using his trademark roundhouse kick, Andy Dillon once made a field goal in RJ Stadium in Tampa Bay from the 50-yard line of Qualcomm Stadium in San Diego. That's awesome. So you could do that, right? But it'd be way better, a way better app if, imagine if you had two inputs here, one for first name, one for second name. And here we pass in first name, second name, and then this would be an interpolated string. And we say first name, fist name. That's appropriate. And last name, like that. Oh, second name. Why did I say second name? First name, second name. So weird. Okay. So yeah, this makes it way more interesting. Like just by adding this and then adding in those two input fields makes it a way cooler application. And you can even say, if your users don't want to add a name, just give this a default value and go back to Chuck Norris. So there's a lot that you can do with these applications. This is the time to get super creative, get ready for Build Week next week, have fun. Yeah, just have a lot of fun with this. It's gonna be really cool. All right. I have been working on your sprint project. I should be able to have it finished today. If it doesn't work out, then we will do the Smurfs project again. So you may have the same. I don't want to do that because you've been through that before. So yeah, I'll just finish that. So no preview yet. You're welcome. But as soon as it's up and ready, I'll post it here. Please no Smurfs. All right. Cool. Any last questions? Yeah, absolutely. I'm okay if you start out using Redux hooks. That's fine with me in this project today. All right, if there are no other questions. Oh, I was going to show you this, huh? So one thing you have to be careful with is if you ever do something like, let's just say const array equals an array with nothing. If you ever do something like this, array.length, and then like array.map, we return paragraph tag with hi. Okay, now where am I? Unexpected token. Not seem like an unexpected token to me. Oh, because it's already in. Okay, it was an unexpected token. Okay, so if you ever do something like this, since we know that 0 is falsy, and this is going to evaluate down to 0, which is falsy, then it won't hit this, right? But watch what happens instead. We get the number 0. So in your JSX, this is actually bad to do because this is a value that will print in the DOM. It won't hit here because this is falsy, but it's still the number 0 that prints on the DOM. Crazy, huh? So if you're ever checking for array.length to be falsy, then you want to say if it does not equal 0, then display this. Or if it's greater than 0, probably what I would do, then you don't get that 0 printed there. That one took me a while the first time I ran into that bug. So just a heads up there. Okay, that is it today. Everybody have a wonderful day and good luck on your projects. Again, have a lot of fun. If you run out of ideas, if you finish just that get data and display it real quickly and you run out of ideas, talk to your TL or another student and ask them what feature would be cool. I want you to get past choosing an API and knowing how to work with it quickly. If you're having trouble with your API, I don't want that to be a major blocker today. So you can break the 20-minute rule for that alone today. So if you're having trouble with your API, get help quick. I don't want that to be a big blocker today. All right, I'll see you all sometime soon. I don't know when, tomorrow for a Q&A. Bye.